these gaps here and your unit positioning, anything to keep the Protoss or any enemy away from your tanks. And we do have a little bit of Hellion Harass coming in here. EGiNkA putting up that little bit of a wall here for just that reason, to help fend off any light harassment like that. And we've got quite a bit of production facilities in here. We've got 8 gates here, as well as 2 robotics, and no upgrades for EGiNkA, and only a +1 weapon upgrade for Root. But Root also has armor and +2 weapons, as well as +1 vehicle weapons coming up, and ghosts. So Root is definitely just macroing up right now. He's trying to build a good composition. Needs to get those ghosts out, because ghosts are just incredible versus Protoss, and pretty much essential once they have High Templar on the field. And if they have more Immortals, definitely a very good investment, because Immortals are great until they get EMP'd, and then they're pretty much a big waste of minerals. But Root is sitting on quite a bit of resources here, so he should probably drop down a couple more production. Well, actually, he has plenty of production facilities. He's just not producing from them too much. A little disappointing to see, but actually he's getting pretty close to supply capped, so he's gonna want to cut SCV production pretty soon and start engaging. And this is one thing you just have to be a little careful of when you're expanding to a lot of different locations. You don't want to go too worker crazy, because that can happen and you can end up getting way too many workers, and when your army gets depleted and you go to reinforce it, you find yourself with a much smaller army. Now this is a pretty good chunk here. He has to be very careful with these siege tanks, because if they get caught out of position and not sieged, they're a really big liability. So even if you're just camping here, not a bad idea to just keep them sieged, because when this comes in, I mean, fortunately EGiNkA did not continue to push, because if he did, that could have been pretty bad. You don't want these siege tanks to get caught off guard. And this is actually this could be a little bad here. Nice EMPs. Protoss army just getting pummeled by artillery rounds there. Root needs to be careful against these Colossus, to pull back so that way he's out of range of the Colossus but in range of his tanks. Be careful not to lose those ghosts there. So these Colossus just picking off this stuff from a distance here. Gonna pretty much force Root to engage. Root's gonna have to go pretty slow though, but he's got to be really careful with these Colossus here, because that's a real good chunk of Colossus. And we do have Vikings and ghosts here, so Root just pushing back EGiNkA. Well, though EGiNkA is expanding this forward, or expanding to this forward position here, so he has a strong presence on the map, and he does have quite a bit of an income advantage here. And as you can see with all these Colossus, that's quite a bit. So, but we have +3 weapons and Thors coming out for Root here. So Root's just playing it safe, but he needs to be careful, because this mobility is going to catch him off guard if he invests too heavily in this forward position. But he is doing the siege march right now, so hopefully he will force this ball to come back, but it looks like he might get caught out of position. Gonna lose that command center, but in the meantime it's gonna give him the distraction to move forward and do as much damage as he can. Now since he doesn't have any medevacs, these units are already pretty weakened, and he's very marauder heavy, so well, he has just enough Marines to take out that Void Ray there. Now this expansion is also going to go down. Root needs to pull his SCVs to heal, and just a little too late there. we do have the slow siege march coming in, working on this expansion over here. And we've got the medevacs coming out to heal this bio ball. Now, oh, I really would have liked to see EGiNkA engage. He could have definitely taken out this expansion, but he was a little more worried about losing this over here, which is understandable. So Root is pretty much supply capped here, and looking pretty bad for Root. That's a lot of Colossus, a lot of tech, and he lost a lot of his siege tanks there. And this could be it. He only has Hellions down here, and EGiNkA's got, you know, well fortified positions here and here. I don't think there's a whole lot Root can do at this point against these Colossus. And I know a lot of players, as you know, Terran players don't tend to go for like battle cruisers, for pretty much the same reason that protest players usually don't go for carriers. Mainly just it's very expensive tech and it's kind of niche. But I think just a couple battle cruisers with Yamato cannons can help against these Colossus here. But you know, it really depends on your composition, because obviously they're a liability if, you know, Blink Stalkers get up underneath them, and with the High Templar they can be feedbacked. So I think Root played pretty well, but it looks like he's just getting out macroed, and there's not really a whole lot he can do now. Archons moving in, they make excellent shields. Unfortunately, they don't do a whole lot past that. But I think, well, EGiNkA needs to not get too overzealous here and lose all of his units. But he has a steady rate of reinforcements here. Root could pull this around if he's careful, but EGiNkA still has a great economic advantage here. So I think if EGiNkA just stays on top of his macro, he's going to be fine. He's in a very comfortable position right now with these Colossus. Pretty much none of them had died in all these engagements. So we've got another planetary fortress. If Root expects to survive, he needs to be a little more conscious of when those fortresses are being attacked, so that way he can pull his SCVs to heal it. Now he has a very large amount of siege tanks, so he needs to just be intelligent with this placement here. Use this medevac, or even if he gets like a Viking or something, just something for sight. Now here comes the engagement here, and EGiNkA yet again forced to retreat his Colossus because he doesn't want to lose them, because they're a very heavy investment, and they are what's helping keep Root back. But we do see a carrier coming out, as well as more Immortals. Immortals are a great choice against tanks, simply because they absorb a lot of that artillery while they move into position. So the carrier will arrive in just a moment. And carriers they're such excellent units, but they're very hard to field because of the amount of tech and money that it takes to field them. I don't really like Root's positioning here. So he's going to try and move in and snipe this, and he gets it. He should really pull back now and pull back to the safety of his siege tanks. He should really pull these bottom ones up a little bit. But definitely a good strike there. He needs to manage to get up into here though. This would be a good kill if he could take that out. That would really cripple EGiNkA's economy and allow him to kind of be on even footing again. But we have yet another carrier coming out, so he needs to really make a stand before this tech starts really taking hold. And EGiNkA expanding yet again down here. Root being very careful with his push here. And here comes the cavalry. We've got quite a healthy force here. I'm not sure if Fruit's going to be able to handle all these immortals as well as this carrier. And I mean, the carrier doesn't even have any upgrades, but it's just a good reinforcement unit. Now the EMP is helping these tanks take out the immortals, but not quick enough. There's just so much high-tech units here. This is looking pretty bad for Root here, as these immortals are just cleaning up these tanks and leaving the carrier back here because there's no anti-air. And that was a pretty crippling engagement. I don't think Root can really recover from that, because EGiNkA has just kept these Colossus alive this whole game, and they've allowed him to spend his resources on ground troops to continuously assault Root, while just being very careful with these Colossus here. And we see more carriers. We've got kind of like the last ditch bio ball coming out here, but with all those Colossus, I don't really think it's going to make much of a difference. And this is probably going to be the final engagement. And this guy's just melting, and Root GGing out of that game. Definitely a good game overall. Root had pretty good positioning of his tanks for the most part. He did kind of lose this push up here early on, and I think that was just a little bit of mis-scouting on his part, and he got caught a little unprepared there. But EGiNkA playing very intelligently with these Colossus, not overcommitting them, and not even losing them to Vikings. There wasn't a lot of Vikings from Root. I would have liked to see a couple more, or possibly a battle cruiser or two, but you know, a lot of people, they don't really want to get that higher tech because it's expensive and it takes a while to tech to, and you know, they are a bit of a liability if you leave them by themselves. But they're kind of like carriers. They're more of a support unit. Though I don't play Terran, so I'm not entirely sure the actual role of battle cruisers, but I know Yamato cannons are very good for taking out, you know, like Colossus. Even if he had hung back a little bit and researched maybe the strike cannons for his Thors, and used the Thors specifically to take out these Colossus instead of kind of just a support unit. He only made like 3 of them throughout the game. I think if he had pursued that, he would have fared a little bit better against these Colossus. Though for Terran, it is a little tough to handle this Protoss late game, and it's just a lot. You have to be a little more intelligent and creative with your positioning and what units you have where. And we saw a lot of that with the siege tanks, but I think he went a little too siege tank heavy towards the end. But overall, I think it was a pretty good game. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you learned something.